Pain at the pump has become synonymous with rising fuel prices, but this time the petroleum, diesel and kerosene review landed like a bombshell. In Nairobi, the cost of super petrol is shooting up from 127 shillings in the last month to 134 shillings per litre. And on the sidelines of this grim reality, a different but closely related debate is unfolding in the auspices of Parliament, a conversation about Kenya's public debt.
Of 521.7.
The Senate Committee on Finance and Budget sought answers from CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge on Kenya's debt standing, coming months after the IMF raised Kenya's risk of debt distress from moderate to high. But the CBK chief was full of reassuring news.
Though that estimate will change a little because it was done in the context of the COVID-19 period. And we are going to run another debt sustainability exercise, which we should be finishing in the next month. And I'm pretty sure because of the better global economic environment, etc., the numbers will be more favorable.
And while the jury is still out on that particular score, senators had their own misgivings on the loan terms of externally funded government projects, especially the standard gauge railway.
Those who argue that some of these debts are a threat to our sovereignty are right. Now, the debt of 327 billion shillings, the interest rate is 2%, the repayment period is 13 years, the grace period is 7 years. Now, you don't need to be a genius to know that, in fact, we are going to default on this loan, if we haven't already.
Initial plans to lower Kenya's growing debt failed due to high spending on infrastructure, COVID-19, budget deficits and more commercial loans.
The idea was to bring down the deficit from 7.9 in 2019-2020, 7.9% of GDP, all the way to 3% in 4 or 5 years. And that was the plan. Then COVID hit.
As for the National Debt Register, the CBK only remains involved on the domestic front. External debt figures are only known by Treasury.
In terms of domestic debt, we know it to the shilling. External side, the National Treasury is the one that manages that quote-unquote debt register.
Senators say it is high time that tougher mechanisms were introduced to regulate the borrowing process.
If you're lending money to Kenya, the Minister for Finance must present to you the following. And you say an approval from Parliament, maybe a seal from the judiciary, something from Central Bank, just trying to put in checks, Bwana Governor.
At the end of 2020, Kenya's debt stood at 69% of the GDP, up by 7% from the previous year. IMF says that huge cuts on VAT and income tax have worsened Kenya's ability to raise revenue. The fund, however, reckons the debt is still sustainable.
Maybe forgot to ask you.
David Bidi, K24.
On lending or on a project, etc.,